Well, hello, listeners. You are listening to Working Mom Life Podcast. And today I'm very excited to introduce a special guest that I have on this episode, Nancy Solari from Living Full Out. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Nancy, I thought it would be great if we could just start by taking a few minutes for you to share with our listeners what led you to creating your company. I think your story is so inspiring. And I really think it's going to be helpful for our listeners to hear where you're coming from.
Well, thank you for giving me that opportunity. And what I'll share about how I created Living Full Out is that prior to starting my company, I had various other careers in broadcasting as a reporter and host, and I was in the music industry, and I performed and sang. I was in real estate and helped people buy and sell properties. But what I noticed in each of those careers were the stresses, the pains that people were under, almost these illusions of a dream that they were chasing, wanting to attain, but somehow were getting exhausted, or they were starting to doubt if it would ever happen. Would they ever be a singer? Would they ever be able to afford a home in Southern California? And I also looked at where the triggers were for people. And so as I kind of went through each of those careers, I wanted to dedicate my life to kind of connecting the dots of helping people to attain that aspiration. Granted, if somebody wants to be an astronaut, well, they may or may not be able to, but there's a lot of great things that you can do in terms of understanding space or the planets, and maybe it's a hobby, maybe it's a career. I'm giving that as an extreme example because really whatever is in somebody's heart to do, it can be done. It's just we have to remember that life is full of color, and so it's not always going to be done one way. There's variations to how we can get there, and so that's how Living Full Out was created, to help people connect those dots and really identify, what is my purpose, what do I want to do, and then helping them to get there.
Well, that's wonderful. And I think everybody listening can probably relate to that in some way, shape, or form in their own life. So thank you for starting us out with that. I think that's very helpful. Today, I wanted to dive into our topic, which is dealing with hurt in a broken relationship. And I think this is something that if you're not living, if you are living, you've probably experienced this. And whether that's with a marriage, some sort of relationship with a significant other, friendships, or even your own children. And so I want to talk about that, and I want to start with, Nancy, what do you think as far as a friendship? Do you think friendship can overcome conflict?
Some can and some can't, and it'll just depend. And you have to be curious enough to find out why a friend is acting a certain way or behaving badly, maybe, or, why the relationship has become toxic. So sometimes, there might be conflict because the other person is grumpy, in a bad mood, always nagging. But we have to be curious enough to wonder, what are they going through? What is their pain? It may have nothing to do with me or you or your listeners. It may be all the other person's stuff, right? We all have stuff. Now, on the other side, sometimes conflict is going to happen because the other person is truly out of integrity. Maybe they don't have values they stand by or a moral compass that guides them. And so they will do things irrationally. And there really are two examples briefly that I'll give. There was, in my past, a gentleman I was dating, and a friend of mine seduced him, ended up intimately being with him. And I was curious why she did that. And when I met with her, kind of befriended her again and pretended like nothing was wrong, she confided in me that, she had wanted what we had. We were breaking up already, kind of, sort of, but, she thought, hey, well, if he had that with Nancy, then maybe he's that caliber of a guy, and I can have that with him too. It just didn't work out that way. It was just kind of a one-night thing. That example is kind of illustrates somebody who was kind of out of integrity, kind of from a place of desperation. Now, there's also another experience in my life where, a friend, did let me down. I needed her to show up, being visually impaired. I'm legally blind, just so everybody knows. I did ask a friend to assist me with an event that I was speaking at, and she never showed up. And she was going to drive me. We were going to go together. And I had to scramble. I had to find my way there. Took a really expensive taxi because that was before the Uber and Lyft days. And I felt very let down. But again, I had to be curious to find out, what happened to you? Why did you let me down? And when I found out what did happen in her day, it's not that it made it perfectly better, but it made more sense. That was a friendship I wanted to save and keep and understand versus the first one I told you about. That was a friendship I chose to let go of.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you said is so important for everybody to understand, that at times we are dealing with something ourselves, and I actually just gave this example to my teenage daughter yesterday. I haven't always myself been a perfect friend because of circumstances that were occurring at the time, and I had to acknowledge that and go back to the person, own my mistake, and explain why. And that's, I think, part of aging, growing up, and just being very comfortable and aware of your own mistakes and being able to do that. But if people aren't able to do that, it's good for you, if you were the one that was being wronged, to be able to walk through that and have a conversation with them and figure out if this is something you can save or not.
Absolutely, and I don't mean to sound morbid when I say about what I'm about to say, but you do want to think about down the line, at the end of your life, when people are at your life celebration, what do you want to be known for? And be that friend. Be that person that's a good listener. Be that person that's the troubleshooter, the resourceful one. And, I do believe, just like you said, you can turn a new page. If you make a mistake, like you said, own up to it, put yourself back on track, and just be that person you want to be. It's never too late.
So I think you hit on some of this in the first part, but what advice would you have for those listening right now that are struggling with a friendship?
If you're struggling with a friendship, I just invite you to spend some quality time with that person, even if it seems like it's just going to be another go-around of arguing or, that conflict stage. I think you have to spend time with that person to see if it can be saved, preferably in person. If that person is not hearing you out and it's their way or the highway, again, that may be a friendship that you might have to let go of. But if that person breaks down, if somewhere in their arguing they express why they're so angry, then you have an opportunity to be a good friend and work and get through that with them. And I also think it's really important in life, whether it's an intimate relationship or a friendship, life is made up of chapters, like a book, right? And, sometimes we're friends with the same friends we went to elementary school with, but a lot of times we're not. Same with junior high, same with high school, same with college, right? Some friends maintain and some friends we lose touch with. So the moral of the story is it's not like every friend is meant to go the full life distance. Sometimes friendships do kind of phase out. And so if you find that you have a friendship where maybe it's reached its limit, maybe you've grown beyond that friendship, maybe something's happened in their life that has taken them another direction, then it's okay to start a new chapter and put yourself out there and meet new friends. I always say I'm accepting applications for new friendships all the time, constantly taking new friends. So you kind of have to have that attitude.
That's great advice. Thank you. So let's switch gears. We get into a slightly stickier subject, but also could be really powerful for some people. But let's talk about marriage. So clearly conflict is going to exist in a marriage. Even the best marriages have conflict. And honestly, it's normally not a bad thing either because it helps that relationship grow. But what are your tips for working through conflict in a marriage or with a significant other or partner?
It is really important to see if you can find some common ground as to why the conflict is happening. So, for example, in a lot of marriages, there might be one person who just kind of takes it for years. They're the more passive one. They're the more agreeable one. Well, at some point, they might get tired of being agreeable, and the tides will turn, right? And they start to stand up for themselves, and they start to have an opinion. And that's not bad. I just think that if you're that other person that's always got your way, you have to understand, gosh, what's up with this new attitude? Well, maybe they're seeing their life go by. Maybe they enjoy the marriage, but maybe they've said yes to one too many things. And you know what? I really do want to go on this vacation. I really do want to buy that RV and travel across the country. But they've never told their spouse, their mate, because they've been so agreeable. So again, it kind of goes back to that curiosity factor. Why is that person now, after all these years, acting differently? At the same time, I believe that in order for any relationship to grow, whether you're married or dating, is that you have to grow together. And sometimes that can be done on your own, but sometimes it might be one person says this, the other person says that, and you go in circles, right? I do embrace coaching or therapy for some couples that have just kind of hit that crossroad and they need that third person, that tiebreaker, right? And sometimes that's going to be a very helpful tool, or going to there's so many awesome marriage boot camps, just a time where you really work through your stuff. Because if you don't have a dedicated hour of therapy or coaching or a dedicated weekend retreat, it just is so easy to let the daily keep pushing off the issues. You know what I mean? We'll talk about it later. Then the elephant in the room becomes Godzilla in the room, right? It becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So at some point, you have to love your relationship enough and want it to grow together enough that you need that dedicated time.
Absolutely. I will say I've been married 14 years, and honestly, when I got married, it never occurred to me that I would need to put in effort in that type of way, actually put focus. And my husband and I probably around, the half-year mark or so, or halfway through now, so around 7 years, we started to realize, we get what we put into this just like anything else. And if we are focused on growing in our relationship and having the right conversations, putting time into it, it really does make a significant difference. But it does take that effort and work.
Absolutely. It's just like investing time with your children to help them study. They become better students. It's just like, putting money in the bank and watching your savings grow. You need that same investment in time in your relationship so that it can grow.
Absolutely. Totally agree. So we are talking about broken relationships too. So some people are listening right now and thinking, well, that's just great. Thanks for all the points on things that aren't helping me right now because I'm at the stage of this is a broken relationship. There is no fixing this. And there could be many different reasons for that. It could be the person on the other end is not willing to fix it with them. They're not willing to take the steps or put the effort in. What do you recommend for those listening right now that are currently healing from a broken relationship?
Well, I love the way that you say that in terms of healing from the relationship, because it is a healing. I truly believe that when in a relationship, you work on it, right? We talked about that. But at some point, you're going to get to the end of the rope, the end of the line. You've done everything. You've said everything. You've tried every therapy, and the biggest thing is when somebody has checked out of the relationship, could be our audience who's listening now or whoever their spouse or partner is. When somebody is checked out, it's really hard to get them back. And so when somebody is in the process of healing and coming out of a broken relationship, you have to just really be in that space of letting yourself know that it's okay. Again, when somebody's married, hopefully it's forever and ever. When you tell somebody, I love you in any relationship, hopefully it's forever and ever. But if it's not, you have to be able to be in a space of, what did I learn from this relationship? How did it make me better? But also, what was missing? I mean, realistically, what was I lacking? What was I desiring that wasn't there? And so it kind of becomes two different lists. How have I become a better person, and, how do I want to be different in my next relationship? But also, you know what? Now that this relationship is over, what do I really want? And you kind of put together that list. And also, I think you want to get excited. When we're born and we take our first breath of life, all the way to our last breath of life, it's the game of life, and you're here to play it full out. And the thing is just because you get married, just because you tell someone I love you, doesn't mean that person's going to be with you forever. They might pass away before you, or some other, breakup or anything could happen. So it's really looking at the people in your life as almost like in a movie, supporting characters, right? So that's why I believe that people can be married more than one time in their life. You can have more than one soulmate. With all that in mind, when a relationship ends, you want to get excited. Like, who is this new somebody? What is this new relationship going to be like? I embrace change and the newness of life, and so I just encourage your audience to do the same.
That's wonderful. And I personally love change, but I know that the majority get a little terrified by it. Now, I also know that there is a difference between good and, positive and negative change. So before we end today's episode, I just wanted to see, do you have any other recommendations for moving forward with this type of situation if they are truly dealing with a broken relationship?
I absolutely value being around other people. Now, there's going to be times that you want to be alone, but when we're alone, our mind runs away, right? We get stuck in the past, or we think about, replay things over and over again. I encourage you to get out there. I remember when I went through a breakup one time, a friend of mine said, Nancy, when someone invites you to go somewhere, say yes. Always say yes. I was like, oh, it's ridiculous. I mean, I am so busy. I can't go out all the time. I can't say yes every time. But I did. And you know what? It was great. It got me out. It got me meeting new people. In fact, on one of those events I went to, I met my new mate, my new boyfriend at the time. And the thing is I encourage your people to get out there, and also look for groups that you can connect with, whether it's virtually online, like a Facebook group, or whether it could be like Meetup.com is in many different cities. Those are like social groups that you can meet in person and have all sorts of activities, whether it's happy hour groups or whether it's craft groups. It doesn't have to be that you're hanging out with, the opposite sex or somebody romantically. It could just be building up new girlfriends in your life during this stressful time. But get out there, say yes, live full out, rather than kind of wallowing in the pain and the woulda, coulda, shouldas and the, oh no, here I go again. I mean, again, there's so many statements that lead to the stressful time.
I love that. And I love that you said, I love that your friend said to you actually about accepting any invitation to do something, because I do think a lot of people, their natural response in a situation like that is to stay home and isolate themselves and not necessarily be woe is me, but, want to be alone with their feelings because they're hurting. And really the best medicine is to be around people that will lift you up and help you to heal and survive that situation and remind you of all the amazing qualities about yourself, because all you're telling yourself if you're home alone is all the horrible things about yourself. So it's great to be around those that are going to lift you up and make you feel whole again.
Absolutely. And you know what? Those new people that you meet, they don't know all these labels that you put on yourself. They don't look at you and see the label of divorce or breakup or failed or this or that. We have it on ourselves, but other people who are new, they don't see that. So when you go out there and you meet new people, you really get to be the vibration of who you are at the core, who you want to be.
Absolutely. And that's such an important reminder for everybody to keep in mind, because I think immediately you assume people know the things that you're telling yourself, and they don't know those. And I've had moments when I've told my friends the things I tell myself, and they're like, that's not true at all. You're actually really good at this. And so it's amazing what happens if you quit telling yourself the lies to begin with, but if you listen to those around you and actually start to believe what they see in you, you really become just the amazing version that they see, which is awesome.
And it's never too late. That's the good thing, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. So,
yeah. Well, Nancy, this was such a joy to have you on this episode. I know that everybody's going to get so much out of this, and I just really appreciate you taking the time to be on today. This was just fantastic.
Well, thank you for having me. And, I named my company Living Full Out for a reason, because I really want your audience to go out there and live full out. And I encourage them to do something today for them. Could be a massage, could be taking yourself out to dinner, but it could just be as simple as taking a walk for 5 to 10 minutes, playing your favorite playlist, and just, getting that, all starts with the shake of the hips, right? The tap of the foot. All of a sudden you're dancing. The day can completely change with the right vibration, the right music, the right people. That's how you live full out.
Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I enjoyed hosting it. Nancy was fantastic, and I hope that you had some strong takeaways from today. Now, just as she ended that interview saying, doing something for yourself today is so important. And she even mentioned going for a walk, which we all know we have our walking challenge starting here soon in my online community group. So if you have not join the group to participate, I encourage you to do so because it's going to be fantastic. Again, this is a free walking challenge, and it's not an unrealistic amount of time to walk each day. And truly, the point of doing it together is so that we can support each other with trying to get healthier, trying to relieve stress, trying just to feel our best. And we can do it together in a group of like-minded individuals, like-minded women that are just trying to improve themselves. So join us. The group is on Facebook, Working Mom Life. If you have not joined so far, please go seek us out and join that group. Again, it is completely free, and we would love to have you. That is the end of today's episode, and I will see you guys back next week.